in for Anderson tonight. The man who might have been the country's top law enforcement official tonight is also a man whose former colleagues today, in a stunning break with tradition, chose to publicly accuse him of having sex with a minor, of regularly paying women for sex, using or possessing illegal drugs, accepting improper gifts and other acts, including obstructing the investigation into those allegations. And honestly, those are just the bullet points from the introduction to the House Ethics Committee's report, a document the committee acknowledged it would not ordinarily release, given that Geatz resigned from Congress the day he was nominated for AG and then, of course, withdrew from consideration. Again, that happened just 8 days later. Quoting from the report now, the committee does not do so lightly, saying in this instance, although several committee members objected, a majority of the members of the committee agreed that the committee's findings should be released to the public.
It is a horrible allegation, and it is a lie.
That was then Congressman Geatz shortly after news of the sex with a minor allegation broke. And now he continues to deny any wrongdoing and actually went to court today to try to block publication of this report. CNN's Caitlin Polans is joining me now with more. So what more is in this report? There are certainly some very damning allegations in here.
There is, Erica, and it was impossible for Matt Geatz to block the publication of this report. The House put it out there, and his lawsuit was dismissed pretty quickly from court today. But what the House found, not only in the broad brush of what they say were violations of their standards of conduct, substantial evidence of things like prostitution or him engaging in paying women for commercial sex, statutory rape, illicit drug use. They also get into the details in this House Ethics Committee report, weaving together not just the trace of payments that they were able to assemble, showing Venmo payments of hundreds of dollars to women from various accounts used or affiliated with Geatz, but also the testimony of women themselves, including a victim, a 17-year-old girl at the time in July 2017 who was having sex with Matt Geatz at a party. The committee writes about that victim. The committee received testimony that victim A and Representative Geatz had sex twice during the party, including at least once in the presence of other party attendees. Victim A recalled receiving $400 in cash from Representative Geatz that evening, which she understood to be payment for sex. At the time, she had just completed her junior year of high school. The federal government, the federal Justice Department, did investigate him for federal sex trafficking violations and other possible crimes, did not charge him with anything. So the House Ethics Committee picked up its investigation, and they found not just this situation with this then underage girl, but they say that many women that Geatz was having sex with were receiving money for drugs or for the sex to the tune of hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And then on top of that, this violation of standards of conduct in the House, it includes him doing drugs. Another quote from the report: another woman said that she brought cocaine to at least one event with Representative Geatz and that she witnessed him taking cocaine or ecstasy on at least 5 occasions. Mr. Greenberg, it's a witness, told the committee that he would typically provide drugs such as ecstasy for events he attended, and Representative Geatz would pay him back in cash. Several other women observed Representative Geatz to be under the influence of drugs. Now, Matt Geatz, he obviously didn't want that report out there today, but he also has said repeatedly to the committee directly and then in public that these allegations against him are false.
As you noted, his last-ditch effort to keep this report from being released failed. Is there any other legal recourse that he has at this point?
There is a question out there about what happens next. The committee did raise the possibility that they think he may have made false statements or obstructed Congress in trying to delay or defer them from getting information from him. There's also a question of what Florida might do, although we have no evidence at this time to believe that Florida's investigating Matt Geatz for what the committee says they think could be statutory rape.
And that's for that that incident that involved the minor, the 17-year-old at the time that you mentioned. Caitlin, appreciate it. Thank you. Joining us now, CNN political commentator Brad Todd, Jasmine Wright, political reporter for Notice, and CNN political commentator Van Jones. It's good to see you all. So, Jasmine, as we look at this, the fact that the House Ethics Committee had initially voted along party lines to keep this report sealed, what changed? What convinced some Republicans on the Ethics Committee to instead change their vote and release this report?
Yeah, Erica. Well, I think you're right. There was always going to be a question of whether they would, whether they not. But ultimately, two Republicans sided with Democrats to release this report. That's not, of course, the chair. The chair didn't want that out. He said it within the report, and another Democrat on that bipartisan committee. But I think what's really interesting here is that this is a committee of Matt Gaetz' peers, former peers, and potentially future peers that voted to release that. They said that it was for transparency's sake, making the case that the American public deserved to know what a sitting member of Congress was accused of. Now, of course, Matt Gaetz has denied all of these allegations. In fact, kind of accused this committee of weaponizing this information that he again denies is false against him. But still, this was a group of his peers really pushing this information out into the public zeitgeist, not into the court of law, but of course it's the court of public opinion, in a really stunning example because of course we know that Matt Gaetz resigned from Congress.
Yeah, it's such an important point, the fact that they clearly wanted this information out there, as you say, in the court of public opinion. Van, when we look at this, as recently as yesterday, you had Matt Gaetz floating the idea of another run for office, knowing this report, right, was likely coming out. Today you have Trump ally Steve Bannon saying, quote, Gaetz has to come back, don't back down, double down. In this world that we live in, let's say Matt Gaetz does launch a potential bid for office. Does any of this serve as disqualifying in any way for voters?
Well, it used to. It would have. It's hard to know in this environment we find ourselves now. The one thing that's very clear is, Gates has a lot of enemies. He had people in his own party that all they have to do is just go with their party chair and go with the committee chair and go with precedent, and this would have had to be leaked, but at least it wouldn't have been put out in this way. This lets you know this guy has PO'd some serious people in serious places that we're talking about this tonight. But does it make him a martyr or a villain to Florida voters? We'll probably find out pretty soon.
When we look at this, just because Matt Gaetz obviously withdrew that nomination for AG, it doesn't mean that there could not be a role in a Trump administration, Brad, that does not require Senate confirmation, where we could see him as a part of that administration. How do you see this report impacting those chances? To Van's point, martyr or villain, does this elevate or lower his status with Donald Trump?
Well, I think first off, his relationship with Donald Trump is from the campaign, where he was a key member of their debate prep team. So I think Donald Trump knows what he got with Matt Gaetz, who Donald Trump has pulled him back after he was clear he was not going to get the votes in the Senate, and he didn't have a problem of 3 or 4 votes. He had a problem of 23 or 24 votes in the Senate that he was not going to get from Republicans. I also think you have to look at the makeup of this ethics committee. You know, Michael Guest, who's the chairman, is a former prosecutor. You have another former prosecutor on there and a former sheriff on there just on the Republican side. These are serious people who look into these things with all due process, and they're charged with not only upholding the rules of the House but also the reputation of the House. And they find in the report, if you read the details of the report, there are several indications that perhaps Matt Gaetz was guilty of accepting favors and gifts that violate the House gift ban. Well, that's exactly the kind of thing that the Ethics Committee is charged with enforcing. And so I think he knew he was going to have a problem with the Ethics Committee. That's why he skated out of Congress. That's why he resigned from the next Congress when he didn't even have to. He could have gone in the next Congress and waited out his nomination chances for Attorney General. But instead, he resigned from both Congresses. I think that tells you a lot. We also know Matt Gaetz didn't sit for an interview. They asked him back in July to come sit for a voluntary interview or respond to a subpoena for the Ethics Committee. He chose not to do that. Those things also tell us things about where he stands regarding the charges.
And Jasmine, when we look at all of this, what are you hearing from your sources in terms of whether or not we may hear Donald Trump weigh in publicly?
Yeah, well, what I've heard from my sources, people close to Trump, is that some are actually surprised that the report actually came out because Matt Gaetz is no longer a sitting member of Congress, because the way that he resigned. But I think the question on a lot of people's minds in and around Mar-a-Lago and certainly here in DC is whether or not Trump is going to publicly come out and kind of bless this. I think what we've seen in the reality, getting to Van's first point, is that some of these Republicans live in different realities, which is that that if you are a Trump loyalist, you kind of have a different playbook, and a report like this may not be as damaging as somebody who is not within Trump's favor. Now, one thing that I heard from somebody is that if he does bless Matt Gaetz, right, just hand over him, that will take a lot of political capital for the president-elect. So maybe there's a chance that if he doesn't go to OWN Network and that he doesn't go back to Congress, that he becomes a member of the administration in a seat that doesn't need to be confirmed. But there is a major question of if Trump is kind of getting all of these different guidances and reports from his advisors, which way he'll go. But I think that's kind of largely a major question here.
Yeah, we will be watching and waiting, I guess.
There may be 500.
Go ahead.
Well, there's 535 members of Congress, and there might be 3 of them that want Matt Gaetz in some kind of job in the administration. So the president-elect may factor that his unpopularity in Congress before he does anything.
We'll see. Or maybe Elon Musk will weigh in. Who knows? Oh, to be a fly on the wall. Brad, Jasmine, Van, thank you all.